Welcome to the Pueblo Army Air Base Museum. And it's so great to see you all here today because this is a special event. In fact, we had to import people for this event. They came from Holland and other places, even Colorado and Ocean Springs, you know. So, but most of the people that came from Holland, now that's a little country in Europe. And you know what they say about the Dutchman, so you can always tell a Dutchman, but you can't tell him much. We have one person today with us who was here in World War II and trained on this base. There he is, right there. George Williams. He was a gunner on a B-24 during World War II, flying out of England. But anyway, today we have somebody special, folks. We have somebody who worked 3.5 years to write a book about the crash of a B-24 near his hometown. And he's worked hard at it because 3.5 years and one book is still pretty good writing. I've been working on it 10 years and I'm not halfway finished. But anyway, his name is Mark van Dries. I hope my Dutch is good enough to pronounce it. But anyway, he's sitting right here. Okay, Mark?
Thank you
very
very
much.
So good morning. Thank you for having me here. It's a very big honor to be here. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Mark van Dries. I live in the Netherlands. It's a little European country between the North Sea, Germany and Belgium. You might have heard about it. And my father wrote it down for a paper that my daughter had to make for school. And one day when I started to read my father's writings and also study the documents and the photos in my grandfather's file, I became very interested, especially in that story of the crash of the American bomber near my grandfather's hometown. In those days, my grandfather was the head of a primary school in Eindhoven. This is a photo of his family just before the war. The boy on the left is my father, and had a good chance of surviving the war, but their helpers were shot as spies or terrorists. The American Air Force that flew from air bases in England was the 8th Air Force. These are the units of the crew that I want to tell you about. In April 1944, a crew was assembled around pilot Jim Garrell at this air base, the Pueblo Air Base in Colorado. 2 days after the crash, 2 coffins with the bodies of Ed and Jean were carried to the local cemetery by 8 resistance men, among them my grandfather. After the liberation of Zeeland, a good month later, resistance men placed one of the propellers on the graves of Ed and Jean. You see them in the photo. Next year, on September 18th, it will be 70 years ago the defended Indian crash. 70 years ago, that 2 young airmen died. And 70 years ago, the lives of 8 other crew members were altered for the rest of their lives. My research was never just about writing a book, but also about honoring my grandfather and his group and those brave American airmen that risked their lives over a foreign continent. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. In fact, if you present the book, this is our president over here, Don Blim, and he would like to receive it from you and say a few words.
Thank you. I'm stunned by that story, aren't you? Yeah, very much. I mean, that's just incredible. Thank you so much for the work you did to put this story together. We're going to be very proud to display this book here at the museum. And we wanted to give you something. At least put this in your library. This is the history of this Army Air Base.
Oh, wow.
And
but to honor this day, because this was the place where the crew came together. This is where the crew learned how to function as a system, to fly that aircraft, be able to be deployed, engage in war. It's kind of interesting that it's almost 70 years after the war. And my cousin, her father was a tail gunner, and here's my uncle, Mark, is the grandson of a resistance movement. And we're still engaged after 70 years, so that's pretty remarkable. What we'd like to donate to the museum is artifacts from Michelle's dad, his medals that he had earned during the war, including the Purple Heart. And go ahead.
I think it's just appropriate, this comes here, it makes a complete circle. No one had that, try to change it.
Thank you. We're going to be very proud to have this here on the museum. But again, thank you.
So this other presentation we have is something we hope will trigger some questions, because we wanted to make sure the museum had a picture of the crew that was formed here. And what we've done is put a little insert of Mark's book cover. So as you display the book cover and you see this, and people ask, then you can assign Fred here to interpret, what's here in the Dutch. So we'd like to present that because this is a crew that formed here at the Pueblo Air Base.
Very well. All right.
Well, I want you all to know how old Dutch people still appreciate the great job that the 8th Air Force and all of the United States Air Forces and their pilots and crews did for Holland and for all of the liberation under the Germans' occupation. It was a terrible life for 5 years, and many of us did not survive. It was not a great time to live, but we were liberated, thank God. God bless you. I know, thanks for my hat. Hey, Mark, appreciate the hat from Holland. And this is a hat to remind us of a 100-year military aviation. And in 1953, I was in my F-84 with about another 72 F-84s flying over Holland, showing off our airplanes. So now I show off my hat.
Thank you. This is Fred Zeeland. We have to thank him. What other purpose do we have as a museum than to try to preserve some of this history?